The room was silent, but Zariah could hear the roar of her pulse like waves crashing against steel. The paper in her hands trembled, though not from weakness. No, it was from the kind of rage that felt too sharp to touch. Her name. Her life. Her father. And beside it, written in stark black ink as if it were always meant to be there, Li Junjie. She stared at him across the study, the lamplight cutting sharp edges across his face. He didn't flinch, didn't rush to explain. He only stood with his hands clasped behind his back, the embodiment of control, as if waiting to see whether she would burn or break. Her voice came out low, brittle. "What is this?" "It is the truth you were always meant to see," Junjie replied. "No," she snapped, shaking the paper. "This isn't truth. This is forgery. This is madness." He stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the marble floor. "It is survival." Zariah laughed. A harsh, hollow sound. "Survival? You erased my father. You rewrote my life like it was one of your business contracts." His gaze darkened. "Your father was already erased, Zariah. You just never knew it." The words cut deeper than any blade. "Explain." Now. For the first time, Junjie's composure cracked. He ran a hand over his jaw, his eyes flicking to the sealed window as if gauging unseen listeners. Then he crossed to the bar cart, poured himself a drink, and tossed it back in one swallow. "When your father crossed me," he began, "he did not just gamble with his own life. He gambled with yours. With your sisters. He made enemies he could not pay. And when the debts came due, I was the one who took the hit, for him. For you." She shook her head. "That's a lie. My father may have made mistakes, but he wasn't some pawn in your war." Junjie's jaw tightened. "Do you think I wanted this? That I wanted your name on my bloodline?" His voice dropped lower, colder. "You were always a piece on the board, Zariah. But I chose to make you mine. Not as a weapon, but as something they could never use against me again." The words landed like stones in her chest. She thought of the surveillance photos. The chess pieces. The notes whispered into her life like poison. And now this rewriting of her very existence. She sank into the leather chair, her fingers curling tight around the paper until the edges bit into her skin. "You stole my choices." "No," he said firmly. "I gave you back your life. The one your father nearly threw away." Her laugh cracked. "And what? You're my savior now? My husband and my father? My jailer and my protector? Which role should I thank you for first, Junjie?" He closed the distance between them in 3 strides, crouching before her so they were eye level. His voice was softer now, but no less dangerous. "Hate me, curse me, despise every part of me if you must. But understand this, every lie I told was a shield. Every secret I kept was a wall between you and the people who would bury you. That is my truth." Her chest tightened. For a moment, she almost believed him. Almost. But then she remembered Aisha's flash drive. Maylene's whispers. The scarred man's warning at the gallery. And the queen in midnight blue who smiled like she knew the endgame already. If Junjie had crossed out her father's name, then who else had he erased? Before she could speak, his phone buzzed sharply on the desk. He rose, snatched it up, and glanced at the screen. His expression hardened. "They've moved," he muttered. "Who?" "The queen." The word lingered in the air like smoke. Within the hour, the penthouse transformed. Guards lined the hallways. The study became a war room, maps spread across the table, red pins marking trade routes, warehouses, safe houses. Zariah stood at the edge, the birth certificate still clutched in her hand, invisible to everyone but Junjie. He paused mid-strategy, eyes locking on hers. "Stay inside tonight. Whatever you do, don't leave this building." But Zariah had already decided. She wouldn't stay locked behind his walls. Not anymore. When the meeting ended and the guard's footsteps faded down the corridor, she slipped the birth certificate into her coat, grabbed the hotel keycard still hidden in her wallet, and left. The Pearl Lantern's address burned in her mind. So did the scarred man's single word. Run. But she wasn't running. Not yet. She was going to find the truth. Even if it killed her. Perfect. The city at night was alive with rain. It fell in sheets against the glass towers, turning neon into smears of color. Zariah pulled her hood tighter, her fingers clutching the hotel keycard like it was both compass and curse. Every step away from the penthouse felt like rebellion. Every corner turned was a betrayal of Junjie's command. Stay inside tonight. His voice still echoed in her head. But if she stayed, she'd never know what he wasn't telling her. The Pearl Lantern Cafe was tucked into a forgotten street near the riverfront. From the outside, it looked abandoned. Dark windows, peeling paint, the faint buzz of a neon lantern flickering overhead. Zariah hesitated only once before sliding the keycard into the lock of room 1904 upstairs. The door clicked. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and stale cigarette smoke. Curtains were drawn tight, and a low hum filled the silence. Her eyes adjusted, and froze. Across the room, a battered television flickered. Grainy footage looped on the screen. Her. Walking to class. Leaving the gallery. Entering Junjie's penthouse lobby. Not Junjie's cameras. Someone else's. You came. The voice came from the shadows. Her pulse quickened. A figure stepped forward, the scarred man from the gallery. His presence filled the room, broad-shouldered and immovable. Zariah forced her voice steady. Who are you? Someone who's been watching longer than Junjie has. Someone who knows your father's death wasn't an accident. Her breath caught. What do you mean? He gestured to the TV. The footage shifted. New, clearer. The docks. Her father's last night. He was pacing, shouting. And then, another figure stepped from the darkness. Not Junjie. Another man. His voice carried, sharp and foreign. Her father's last words were drowned out by the sound of gunfire. Zariah stumbled back, clutching her stomach. No. Junjie said. He said my father. Junjie lied, the scarred man cut in. Your father wasn't erased by debt. He was silenced. Because he knew what the Queen was planning. The name sent a chill down her spine. The Queen. She isn't after money. Or power. She's after legacy. Bloodlines. Families like yours. Families like Junjie's. Zariah's fingers dug into the edge of the dresser, steadying herself. Then why are you telling me this? Why now? The scarred man's eyes hardened. Because you're already in the game, whether you want to be or not. And the Queen will come for you next. Before she could respond, the door burst open. Two men in black stormed in, guns raised. Move! The scarred man barked, shoving her toward the fire escape. Zariah's body moved before her mind caught up, sprinting down the metal stairs as shouts and gunfire erupted behind her. The night air slapped her face, cold and wet, as she fled into the maze of alleys. Back at the penthouse, Junjie stood in the study, the map spread before him. His men had reported the Queen's movements at the docks, her rivals shifting pieces into play. He should have been focused. But the silence in the halls gnawed at him. He crossed the apartment, his steps quick, controlled, until he reached her room. Empty. Her coat gone. Junjie's chest tightened. He picked up the hotel keycard she'd left behind on the nightstand, its corner damp from rain. His expression darkened, rage and something heavier bleeding through his calm exterior. Zariah, he whispered, half curse, half prayer. The rain did not stop. Zariah leaned against the brick wall of an alley, her breath ragged, her heart still hammering from the chase. She clutched the birth certificate in her coat, soaked through now but still intact. For the first time since her father's death, she felt the truth wasn't buried, it was alive, hunting her. And as lightning tore across the sky, she knew one thing with bone-deep certainty. There was no going back to the girl she had been. And there was no going back to Junjie's safety. The Queen's game had begun. The storm had dulled to a steady drizzle by morning, but the city hadn't slowed. Market stalls reopened, buses hissed through wet streets, and neon signs blinked like tired eyes. To everyone else, it was another day. To Zariah, it felt like the ground beneath her was giving way. She ducked into a narrow passage between two shuttered shops, pulling the soaked hood from her face. Her hands were trembling, not from cold, but from the weight of the truth pressing down on her. Her father silenced. The Queen moving pieces. And Junjie, always Junjie, standing between them with secrets sharp enough to cut. Her phone buzzed. Zariah froze. She hadn't given her location to anyone, not even Aisha. Slowly, she pulled it from her pocket. One message. Unknown number. We need to talk. Alone. Her chest tightened. She wanted to trust Aisha, needed to, but after what the scarred man had shown her, trust felt like a currency she could no longer afford. Still, something inside urged her forward. She slipped through the waking city until she reached an underground tea house hidden beneath a train station. Aisha was already there, waiting in a dim booth, her hair tucked beneath a scarf. Her eyes darted to Zariah the moment she entered, equal parts relief and fear. You shouldn't have come here, Aisha whispered. Zariah slid into the booth, her voice low. You're the one who called me. I had no choice. Aisha's hands fidgeted with her teacup. They're closing in on you. The Queen's men. The pearl lantern wasn't just a meeting point, it was bait. Zariah stiffened. Bait for who? For you. The word landed like a blow. Aisha leaned closer, urgency sharpening her tone. Listen to me, Zariah. The Queen doesn't just eliminate people. She consumes them. Families, legacies, fortunes. She rewrites bloodlines like they were pages in a book. She's been doing it for decades. Zariah's thoughts flew to the birth certificate, to Junjie's name written where her father's should have been. So Junjie is fighting her in the only way he knows how, Aisha finished. By rewriting the board before she can. By claiming you as his bloodline. Zariah's stomach churned. Junjie's words replayed in her mind. Every lie I told was a shield. Was this what he meant? Before she could speak, the lights flickered. The hum of conversation in the tea house faltered. A cold draft swept the room. And then she saw her. At the far end of the room, framed in the glow of a single lantern, stood a woman in midnight silk. Her presence was magnetic, her beauty cruel, every movement deliberate. She did not need to introduce herself. The Queen. Conversations stilled as if the entire tea house recognized her shadow. Two men in black flanked her, but it was her smile that froze Zariah in place. Zariah, the Queen purred, her voice velvet and venom all at once. At last. Aisha's grip tightened on Zariah's wrist under the table. Don't speak. Don't look at her too long. But it was too late. The Queen's gaze pinned her like a moth to glass. Your father was brave, the Queen said softly, taking a step closer. But bravery without obedience is dangerous. I hope you will be smarter. Zariah's breath came shallow. Her instincts screamed to run, but her legs refused. And then, chaos. The tea house doors burst open. Junjie's men stormed inside, guns raised. The sound of splintering would drowning the Queen's velvet calm. Patrons scattered. Shouts filled the air. The Queen did not flinch. She merely lifted her hand, signaling her guards back, her eyes never leaving Zariah. Choose carefully, little one, she said with a smile. Pieces who hesitate are always the first to fall. And then she was gone, slipping into the storm with the same silence she had entered. Zariah sat frozen, her pulse thunderous. Aisha whispered something urgent, but Zariah barely heard. All she could feel was the weight of that gaze, that smile, etched into her bones. When Junjie himself appeared in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes locked on hers. Relief warred with fury in his expression. Zariah, he said, his voice low, strained, trembling at the edges of control. "What have you done?" The air inside the tea house was thick with gunpowder and rain. Shattered teacups littered the floor, steam still curling from broken kettles. Zariah stood in the wreckage, her pulse a frantic drumbeat, her eyes fixed on Junjie. He filled the doorway like a storm barely contained, water dripping from his coat, his jaw tight with something sharper than anger. Relief flickered across his face, then vanished beneath a mask of fury. "Zariah," he said again, slower this time, as though her name itself was a warning. Aisha's hand tightened around Zariah's wrist under the table. "We need to move," she whispered. "Now." "Before." "Before what?" Junjie's voice cut through the space like a blade. His eyes shifted to Aisha, cold and assessing. "Before you deliver her straight into the Queen's hands?" Aisha flinched but didn't let go. "I just saved her life. You led her here." His gaze narrowed. "Do you think I don't know who you answer to?" Zariah jerked her wrist free and stepped between them. "Stop it." Her voice cracked under the strain. "Both of you. I don't care who's playing games anymore. I just want the truth." The silence that followed was heavier than the chaos that had filled the room minutes before. Junjie's men fanned out, checking exits, whispering into earpieces, but Zariah felt as if the three of them stood alone in a cage made of secrets. "The truth," Junjie repeated softly, his dark eyes locking on hers. "You think you can handle it?" Her throat tightened. "Try me." He took a step forward, and she could see the storm in him, the war between control and confession. For a fleeting moment, he looked less like the man who commanded boardrooms and shadows, and more like someone trapped by his own chains. But before he could speak, a phone rang. Aisha's. The shrill sound cut the air. She froze, fumbling to silence it, but Junjie moved faster, snatching it from her hand. His expression hardened as he read the screen. One word. Mother. Zariah's blood ran cold. Not Aisha's mother. The Queen. Junjie crushed the phone in his fist until it cracked, shards falling to the wet floor. "That's all the proof I need," he hissed. Aisha's face drained of color. "You don't understand." But Junjie was already signaling to his men. "Take her." Two guards closed in, and panic surged through Zariah. "Wait." She shoved past Junjie, planting herself in front of Aisha. "She helped me. Whatever you think, she's not your enemy." "She's hers," Junjie said sharply. His eyes burned into hers. "And if you keep protecting her, you'll be next." The words struck harder than he knew. For a second, Zariah saw herself through his eyes. Reckless, exposed, one step from being devoured by a woman who rewrote bloodlines. But then the Queen's velvet voice replayed in her head. Pieces who hesitate are always the first to fall. Maybe hesitation was already killing her. "I'm not leaving her," Zariah whispered. The room shifted. Junjie's men hesitated, glancing at him, waiting. His jaw worked, his composure cracking at the edges. "Do you even realize what you've done?" he asked, voice low, trembling with suppressed rage. "You walked straight into her hands. You saw her, Zariah. You felt it. That isn't a woman. It's a noose. And she's already tightening it around you." Zariah swallowed hard, but she stood her ground. "Then tell me why. Tell me what she wants from me. Tell me why my father died and why you've been hiding everything." His silence was its own confession. "Junjie," she pressed, her voice breaking. "Please." For a heartbeat, she thought he might finally unravel the lies. His hand lifted, almost reaching for her, but then the lights flickered, once, twice, and went out. Darkness swallowed the tea house. The sound of glass shattering upstairs. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Aisha gripped her arm. "She's here." "No," Junjie growled, pulling a pistol from beneath his coat, his body already moving between Zariah and the stairs. "Not her. Not yet. Just her shadows." Gunfire erupted above. Shouts. The queen's men crashing down into the basement like wolves on the scent. Chaos swallowed everything. Junjie seized Zariah's wrist, dragging her toward a back passage. Move. Aisha followed, ducking low as bullets sparked against the walls. The three of them stumbled into a narrow tunnel, damp air pressing in, the smell of mildew and blood tangling in Zariah's lungs. Where does this lead? She gasped. Out, Junjie bit out. If we're fast. Behind them, the tunnel filled with echoes, boots pounding, voices shouting in a language Zariah didn't recognize. The queen's reach was everywhere. They burst into the night through a rusted grate, stumbling into an alley slick with rain. Neon signs bled color across the puddles, casting them in fractured light. Junjie scanned the street, then turned on Aisha, fury burning through the mask of control he always wore. If she finds us again, I'll end you myself. Aisha's chin lifted, defiant despite the fear in her eyes. If I wanted her to have Zariah, she'd already be gone. Zariah stepped between them, her chest heaving. Stop. Just stop. She turned on Junjie, her voice breaking. You say you want to protect me, but all you've done is keep me in chains. And you, she pointed at Aisha, you keep feeding me half-truths until I can't tell if you're saving me or setting me up. Her breath hitched, tears stinging her eyes. I can't do this anymore. Not unless someone gives me the truth. The rain fell harder, plastering her hair to her skin, but neither of them spoke. For a long, agonizing moment, Zariah thought silence would be her only answer. Then Junjie exhaled, slow and jagged. His hand curled into a fist at his side. Fine, he said, his voice raw. You want the truth? Then hear it. You were never supposed to exist. The world seemed to tilt beneath her. Aisha gasped. And Junjie's eyes, dark, unyielding, never left Zariah's. The queen tried to erase your bloodline. I broke her game. And now she'll burn everything to take it back. The words hung in the rain like a curse. The rain slowed to a whisper, as though even the sky had grown weary of bleeding. Zariah stood frozen in the alley, Junjie's words hanging in the air like the toll of a bell. You were never supposed to exist. The queen tried to erase her. Her father, her life, her very bloodline, all pieces on a board she hadn't even known she was part of. And Junjie, the man who had stolen her choices, rewritten her name, chained her to his shadow, he had broken the game for her sake. Her chest rose and fell, every breath laced with disbelief. So all of it, every lie, every contract, every wall you built around me, was war, Junjie finished, his voice low, hoarse. He wasn't looking at her as a strategist or a tyrant now. He looked like a man who had carried too much weight for too long. You were the one piece I refused to lose. Even when it meant becoming the villain in your eyes. Aisha's gaze flicked between them, her face pale but intent. He's not lying, she murmured. I saw the files. Your father knew the queen's plans. He tried to fight, and she erased him. Junjie stepped in before she could erase you too. Zariah's throat tightened. The paper in her pocket, the birth certificate, his name scrawled where her father's should have been, suddenly felt less like a theft and more like a desperate shield. Her knees buckled, but Junjie was there in an instant, catching her. His arms were strong, steady despite the storm inside him. For the first time, she didn't pull away. I don't want shields, she whispered against his chest. I just wanted the truth. He lowered his head, his breath warm against her hair. And I wanted you alive more than I wanted you to love me. The confession cracked something deep inside her. The walls she had built to survive his power, his secrets, his control. Suddenly they didn't feel like walls anymore. They felt like scars, and she was tired of bleeding. I hated you for so long, she said, her voice breaking. But now, I don't know what to feel. Then feel this, Junjie said softly, pulling back just enough to meet her eyes. His dark gaze was stripped of every mask, every game. I will spend whatever time I have left proving to you that you're more than a move on a board. You're the reason I stopped playing it. A tear slipped down her cheek, mingling with the rain. And for the first time, she let herself believe him. Days later, the city had settled. The queen's shadows retreated back into silence, though her presence lingered like smoke on the horizon. Aisha vanished, leaving only a note, "I'll be watching. When the queen moves again, you'll need me." But for now, peace had returned. Zariah stood on the balcony of Junjie's penthouse, watching the skyline burn gold in the setting sun. The storm was gone, the world washed clean. She leaned on the railing, the city spread out like a living map beneath her. Behind her, the sound of footsteps. Measured, steady, familiar. "You should be resting," Junjie murmured, joining her at the edge. His hand brushed hers, tentative, almost shy, a foreign thing for a man who had once commanded the world like it was clay in his hands. Zariah didn't pull away. "I've rested long enough. Hiding, doubting, running." She turned her face toward him, the fading light catching the softness in her eyes. "I don't want to run anymore." He studied her, silent. The man who had been her enemy, her captor, her protector, her husband, and something more than all of that. Something unnamed, until now. "Then stay," he said simply. Her heart beat fast, not with fear this time, but with something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. "I will," she whispered. And before the moment could shatter, she reached up, her hand cupping his jaw. His eyes closed, his breath unsteady, as she leaned in. Their lips met, not as a bargain sealed, not as a shield raised, but as the first move in a life finally their own. The city roared on around them, but in that space, on that balcony, there was only silence. And sweetness. The war was not over. The queen still lingered in the shadows, her game unfinished. But Zariah knew one thing with certainty. Whatever moves came next, she would not face them alone. For the first time, she felt not erased, not rewritten, but chosen.